Hello there. So today we're making rice and lentils together. One pot dish inspired by Mediterranean mujadara. You'll love it. Let's start by washing our hands. For this recipe, you need equal parts lentils and rice. I have 2.5 cups brown and green lentils. Same amount jasmine rice or any long grain rice you have on hand will work. 1 large onion, half a teaspoon of vegetable bouillon, 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, salt to taste, 1 small stick of cinnamon, curry powder, fenugreek, and some oil. So I have the water above the rice about 2 inches. All right, this is all the water we're going to be using to cook the entire dish, including the rice. Parboil the lentils for about 15 minutes. Next step, we're frying our thinly sliced onion till caramelized and crunchy. Our oil of choice is cooking olive oil. And you may use any other cooking oil you have on hand. Vegetable oil or any other kind, even avocado oil will be great for this recipe. And feel free to fry your onions in batches if you're not using a lot of oil to do the frying. Remember, our initial goal is to fry these onions till crunchy, crispy, and caramelized. Overcrowding the oil will defeat that purpose. And we have been boiling the lentils for 15 minutes and they're now al dente, so the texture is just right. They're not near that stage where they're almost about to become mushy, and that's exactly how you want them. Our onions look great. Let's take them out of the oil before they burn. Place your onions on a paper towel lined tray or plate so they can stay crunchy. Time to combine the rice with the lentils, and we want to do the very important step of washing the rice until the water we're washing the rice with becomes clear. Now it's time to add the salt and the bouillon, followed by the rice. It's best practice to hold off on seasoning with your salt until the lentils are parboiled. This way, the tenderization process of the lentils do not become delayed. Time to also place the cinnamon stick in there so it can start releasing its flavor. And the last batch of our onions are done frying. Now we're going to store some of the oil we fried the onions with for later use. Because at this stage of the cooking, we only need a fraction of the oil to continue. To amplify the flavor and fragrance of your spices, toast them first in the oil. The fenugreek, cumin, and the curry. We're also going to grate in 1 clove of garlic. You may also finely mince the garlic, and the toasting should take under 30 seconds. Not exceeding, friends, otherwise everything will burn and become bitter. Quick swirl is heated up, take it off of the heat, and pour into the rice and lentils. The rice and lentils have been cooking for 5 minutes with the lid of the pot off and on medium heat following the addition of the rice. Now stir properly until all the components in the pot are distributed evenly. Then turn the heat down to low. My heat level goes up to 10, like in most traditional stoves. All right, so I turn it down to 2. Place the lid on, cooked for 30 minutes, undisturbed. And now here's what we have. Notice the fluffiness in this pot. Fluffy and yet very tender, and you'll see what I mean. Fluffy is the only way you must enjoy your rice and lentils, your mujadara. Continue fluffing it up with a fork while looking for the cinnamon stick. And there it is. Remove that because we don't need it anymore. Thank you, cinnamon. Have a great rest of your life. Now let's add the fried onions, which is everything in this recipe. You really just cannot overdo it with the fried onions, friends. It is the star of the show, friends. Yes, now you want to fold your crispily fried onions into the rice and lentils. Continue to add some more until you are satisfied, friends. And you'll see when you replicate this recipe that the fried and caramelized onions are such a brilliant addition, friends. You'll enjoy it so much. Time to serve our mujadara. Our rice and lentils are ready. And notice again how it pours with so much ease because it is cooked fluffily. Now we want to just garnish with a little sprinkle of some fresh flat leaf parsley or cilantro, or any herb you like to garnish with. That will be fine. We want our serving platter to look presentable and absolutely gorgeous, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. Looks mouth-watering and you want to dig in. On this day, I served my husband a whole red snapper fish fried, some lime for the fish, a green chili sauce, and also a fresh salad made with carrots, cucumber, avocado, onions, and a light vinaigrette. This dish went down so well, friends. You see how fluffy the rice is? Yes, it's fluffy. Now let me show you how tender it is. By balling it up into a fist. Friends, I hope you all inspired to try this beautiful recipe. I thank you for joining me today. I thank you also for your love and support of this channel. Make it a great day. Let's begin with waakye, which is Ghanaian rice and beans. You need a few ingredients for this recipe, beginning with 2 cups of black-eyed beans or black-eyed peas, which you will need to soak for at least 2 hours to soften them to make cooking quicker. Then you'll wash them thoroughly and add a liter of water and incorporate your sorghum leaves that just went in. Sorghum leaves are available on Amazon.com or any Ghanaian or African grocery store close by you. The sorghum leaves are loaded with antioxidants because of that deep burgundy color. You cook for about 10 minutes and incorporate your bicarbonate of soda, half a teaspoon of that, and you notice it immediately begins to foam up. And it does 2 things for you. It imparts this deep, meaty flavor to the dish ultimately, which is absolutely delicious. You will love it. And it also helps with extract most of the pigment from the waakye leaves. So now we've been cooking 20 minutes. The beans are nice and al dente, soft but not too soft. It's time to add your salt. Perfect time. You don't want to add your salt too early on in the cooking because it will make the beans seize up and take longer to cook. go in and remove your leaves, and also add some cold pressed coconut oil. I will typically use coconut milk, didn't have any on hand today. All I really want is that coconut flavor, and the oil works just as well. I also rinsed the leaves I removed with about half a cup of water and incorporated it. That wasn't captured in this video. I just added my rice. It's 3 cups of jasmine rice, which I have washed thoroughly until the water turns clear. Stir it up and cover the pot and let it cook for 15 minutes on medium heat. When you go back in, you'll notice that the rice is still crunchy. It's not cooked yet, and it's very moist. You still have a lot of moisture in there. So stir it up. Take the bottom to the top and vice versa. Cover it back up and let it continue to cook, this time on the lowest heat setting for 15 more minutes, and voila. The wache is done cooking. I go back in and stir it together, and I place the lid back on just to keep the steam in so it's nice and warm for serving. And you're going to serve this with your wache stew, which is cooked in a tomato and onion base, very rich stew made with different meats such as beef, lamb, goat. You always want your egg in there, as well as some fried fish. It's very delicious. And you also want your shito, your talia, which is noodles, your gari foto. All of these recipes are available on this channel, and they are linked below for your convenience. So there you have it, the quintessential Ghanaian party rice dish that will make your guests absolutely grateful. There's your talia. I have my salad with my avocado to make this dish nice and balanced. And I have my wache stew. I took my egg, some fish, and then I also have the shito, which is so deep in flavor. Oh my gosh. This is perfect. Try it and you'll love it. We're making beef biryani using beef short ribs. It's going to be so delectable, friends. Let's start. The secret to a delectable pot of biryani is lots of caramelized onions. So let's caramelize these thinly sliced red onions. And it is imperative that you slice the onions really thinly so they can fry sooner. And the oil I'm using is avocado oil because it can take on high heats without becoming toxic. You can also use vegetable oil for this. Now you fry until they become golden brown, and take them out and then proceed to fry the next batch. It is a good idea to fry them in batches. Now when you take them out, you want to place it in a bowl or a sheet pan that is lined with a paper towel in order to absorb the excess oil. That will help those onions to also become crispy as they air dry, which is exactly what we're going for. Perfect, all done. Next thing is to prep our short rib. Now what I'm gonna do is sprinkle a generous amount of equal parts salt and crushed black pepper onto it. Very important to pat your salt and pepper into each short rib, making sure it's coating all the sides, because the next thing we're going to do is sear these meat pieces. Now I'm going to drizzle some of this oil we fried the onions in to sear the beef. Just a shallow film of it will go a long way. And leave a reasonable amount of space in between each short rib. Practice social distancing, otherwise you're going to end up developing moisture. We don't want that. When searing your meats to lock in those juices, the last thing you want to do is to place them too close to each other, because when that happens, it means you have overcrowded the pot. They will start releasing those juices you're trying to lock in. So you don't want to defeat the purpose of searing in the first place. Searing also improves the overall taste in the end. So it's one of those win-win situations that I always aim for. Now, you want to sear it 3 to 4 minutes on each side or until you see a lovely golden brown color formed, and also a crust that is hard to break into. And that crust is that seal that locks in those beautiful juices. That is a perfect color. And then you also add, searing must occur on a medium-high heat. You cannot just use regular medium heat or low heat, it won't work. Those juices will run out. Next thing we're going to do is to prepare the meat sauce, because biryani is a two-component dish. It's a rice dish and a meat sauce. So in the same pot we seared our beef, I have these thinly sliced onions I'm going to throw in. And I'm going to be introducing my homemade chicken bouillon. You can use the store-bought. Beef will be preferable. Throw that in there. And you know what's also good in here is a fresh chili flavor kick. I used serrano chilies, which I finely minced, and that just went in. Here is my homemade curry powder, which has turmeric, ginger, cumin, coriander seeds, fennel seeds, which are all part of those warm spices you must have in your biryani. I also have a pinch of nutmeg. We're going to stir all of this in. You also need about a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed black pepper. Now at this point, I'm going to also add some garlic paste, followed by ginger paste, some paprika, now you're going to stir and also add some freshly chopped tomatoes. We also need the juice of half a lemon or lime. Squeeze that in there. A sprinkle of fresh coriander leaves, also known as cilantro. Stir that in. I have 1 stick of cinnamon, 2 bay leaves, 2 star anise, and I also have 8 green cardamom pods. So we are cooking on medium heat, by the way. I'm going to add this plain yogurt. You want that in there. That's going to help create a velvety feel in your mouth. It will also help to break the meat down further and make it nice, juicy, and melt in your mouth. Stir that in. Now introduce your meat pieces. And this time around, they can get friendly with each other. They can touch each other, no problem. No social distancing required here. Because at this point, what we're going to do is braise, which is gentle cooking in moistened heat over a prolonged period of time, which will cause the meat to be tender and melt in your mouth. Now add just a little bit of water to thin the sauce up. And the water also becomes your braising liquid, and a splash or 2 is sufficient. You don't want your sauce to be too thin like soup. And your braising liquid could very well be a broth, such as chicken, beef, or vegetable broth. However, this pot is already overloaded with a ton of very good flavors. So I can safely say water is perfect for this. Now I also caramelized some onions in the beginning. I'm just going to throw a handful of it in here because it will bring a depth of flavor we would love and appreciate in here. Submerge your onions and cover the pot to cook gently on low heat for the next 40 minutes. The rice of choice for any biryani dish is basmati, and you want to get the best quality basmati rice you can get your hands on. Friends, we have come to the point where we need to cook our rice for our biryani dish. And for that, we will need some water that has come to a boil, and we need to season it generously with some salt. Now, this amount of water is about 3 times the regular amount you would need to cook rice or steam it into a fluffy state. What we're doing today, though, is we're parboiling the rice. So you would need more water than usual. Now, here is some of the oil we fry the onions in. Just a little bit to flavor the rice up. Yes, beautiful people, you can throw flavor even at parboiling your rice. You sure can. Your sister Madame just showed you how. There are so many other flavors you can add, but you know the sauce is already extremely flavorful. So what you're looking for, by the way, is your rice grains. As you parboil them on a high heat and all this water that's seasoned well, is the rice grains, you want them to have a translucency on the coating of them, all right? So the core is going to be opaque. And you'd confirm this by taking one rice grain and breaking it open. And once you've confirmed it, you're going to drain it immediately and set it aside. The sauce has been cooking or braising for 45 minutes, so it's perfect. The meat is tender, almost falling off of the bone. And here I have some saffron going into some hot water to steep. And you see how it immediately releases its yellow color. So this is going to be our natural way of arriving at that two-tone signature biryani color. So some of the rice grains will be pure white, and then some of them will be yellow. Now, saffron is a spice that comes from the flower of Crocus sativus, and it has a floral fragrance to it, so that's really lovely. I have poured the rice onto the beef sauce and also drizzled on the saffron juice. Now I'm adding the crispy fried onions. Next, you want to trap some of the steam, but you want to use a barrier that is breathable. Lintless paper towels work perfectly, or a clean kitchen towel will work as well. The reason why you need it to be breathable is so that the rice becomes this fluffy, all right? They don't stick to each other at all, and they just kind of fall off the fork with much ease. And at this point, that opaque core is also cooked perfectly through. Here is your biryani being served party style. Just like in West Africa, you will not go to a really lit party and not find your jollof rice. Well, same applies to most East African countries. I know for sure Tanzania and Kenya, the ones I'm actually referencing here, biryani is representing it. That party is going to be lit, all right? Just like so. And I sprinkle on some fresh cilantro or coriander leaves, chopped, and then I also sprinkle some of those crispy fried onions. And you can, by the way, substitute the saffron with a potent carrot juice or turmeric steeped in some hot water. And I left some ingredient substitute details in the description box below. Oh my goodness gracious, friends, another beef recipe done and done. Woo, it's so good. You have to give this a shot. I gotta go join my family. No wonder they couldn't wait. It is so delicious, friends. Give it a shot. It is chop time. Make it a great day and have fun, especially in that kitchen. Greetings, friends and family. Welcome to Nanaba's Kitchen. I hope you all are having a fantastic day and being kind and loving to each other out there. We need that a lot, especially nowadays. On the menu today is Thieboudin, which is the national Senegalese dish, which is West African, and it's translated as red rice with fish. It is nourishing, satisfying. Oh, it is so delicious. It's to live for. I cannot wait to go over the ingredients with you. So let's wash our hands so we can start. So beautiful people, to bring your bold flavors, to let the flavors shine and pop, and to maximize them, you want to use the freshest of ingredients. I've gathered everything I need and cleaned them so they're ready to be prepped. I have 4 large onions and I'm using white. You can use whatever kind of onions you have. I also have some habanero chilies for that chili flavor and the heat, but I'm toning the heat down with sweet peppers. I have some tomatoes, eggplants from Quanchoa's garden. Love you, sister, love you, and I appreciate you. I also have some scallions, some parsley, carrots, red bell peppers, ginger, garlic, and of course I have the secret ingredient, which is cured king mackerel. In Ghana we call this momone in the Akan language, or lonshla in the Ga language. I also have my fish. My favorite fish is grouper, and that's what I'm using today, but you can use any kind of fish which holds itself together when it's fried, and it's delicious. So halibut is one you can substitute with, red snapper, pompano, whiting, croaker, even tilapia. Just make sure it's not filleted, because fillet fish is going to fall apart in this recipe. Also make sure it's not oily kind of fish such as mackerel. That won't work here. We also need cassava or yuca. Yes, I know. We'll talk about that pretty soon. Another ingredient needed is squash and yams or sweet potatoes. Now this is the rice of choice used in the original version. It has to be broken rice. I'm using broken jasmine rice because jasmine rice is fragrant, it's perfumed, and it cooks really fluffy, almost like couscous texture. It's beautiful. First step, friends and family, is to prepare the fresh green relish that's going to be stuffed into our fish before we fry it. For that, we're going to need 1 onion, which you just need to chop up into a rough chop because it's going to go into the food processor with the rest of the ingredients and be crushed into a chunky texture. All right, now the next ingredient is our scallions, all right, which is green onions. Do the same thing with them. No fancy shapes here, just cut them up. These are my sweet green long peppers, all right? So they don't have any heat, just the sweetness and that chili flavor. Now I also have another kind, so this is just another kind I found. I love the color, so I'm adding it. All right, it's just sweet bell peppers. They're miniature bell peppers. These are the habaneros, which bring the chili flavor, including the heat. And for sure, use less habaneros if you're bothered by the heat, or you can even omit them. You'll still get the chili flavor from the peppers we used. I've added the garlic, and now I'm cutting up my ginger, which I have peeled. Now this is my fennel seeds, which you can substitute with anise seed, or you can even use star anise as well. And I have my homemade all-purpose seasoning, which has salt in it, and also has some sweetness to really bring the umami to the forefront. Then I also have some salt, and of course the amount you use is per your own taste or your own preference. All right, I always have to have my black pepper, which I have freshly crushed. I find that crushing your black peppercorns just prior to use helps to maximize its flavors. And I'm also adding some parsley, including its stems. Always use the stems of your parsley. Most of the flavor is stored there. This is the curled leaf parsley, but you can use the flat leaf. The parsley is not optional. You have to have parsley in your green relish for cooking your fish, even in the original recipe. So what we're going to do now is just crush it up into a chunky texture. And you can also use your mortar and pestle for this, or you can even use your molcajete. So if you speak Spanish, you know what molcajete is Spanish mortar and pestle made from stone, and it works well. I've seen it used many times. Next step is to stuff this beautiful fish with this lovely relish. and let it sit for a little while to take on all those flavors, all right, to soak them all in. To do that, I'm going to need some pockets using a fillet knife, a very sharp fillet knife, and be careful with this. All right, I'm just gonna go in at a 180-degree angle, parallel to the bone, and just make my incision that way. All right. And for your steak cut pieces of fish, just make small incisions that way. About 1/2 inch is what I needed to do because these fish are cut into very thick steak cuts. All right, so depending on the size of fish you have, all right, so just use your discretion there. And stuff your fish up. Look at this pocket. You know this fish is going to be deliciously cooked to the bone. It's going to be just perfect. Now stuff as much as you can of the relish into the fish pockets. And with this little incisions you made in the steak cut, you're going to use your index finger to kind of open it up. All right, so you have a more like a hole than incision, and stuff it that way. This relish is fragrant, it's delicious, it was seasoned well. All the ingredients are working well with their flavors. There is no discord here. So our fish is now wrapped up. I'm going to set it in the fridge to just marinate for about maybe 30 minutes. The rest of the relish will be incorporated into the rice dish, so we'll set that aside as well. Next step, friends, while our fish is marinating, I will need to prepare a quick tomato sauce. I have 6 Roma tomatoes, which are very ripened, and 2 red bell peppers for sweetness. I just cut them up into 2. Just make them into halves like that and throw them into the pot I'm going to be cooking it in. And for the red bell pepper, I just remove the seeds. All right, so I cut around the seeds so they fit into the pot and throw the seeds away, and it's going to bring us that needed sweetness. All right, this dish is going to be very rich in the end, so you want those bright flavors, those bright notes to help really kind of tone down the richness a little bit. So set it on the stove on medium heat, cover it up, and let it cook for about 5 minutes, and then you'll see that some juices will be released. Go back and remove the lid and let it continue to cook on low heat for the next 20 minutes or so. It is now time to fry the fish. All right, friends and family, thank you so much for sticking around. We are about halfway done. Our fish has been marinating for about 30 minutes. Our tomatoes and red bell peppers are still reducing on the stove, and we've prepped all of our fresh produce, so we are ready to now fry our fish. One thing we didn't do when we marinated the fish is actually season the fish. All right, we seasoned the marinade or the relish, but not the fish. It is important that you season the fish before you fry it. All right, now this is avocado oil, and it's healthy for frying. We're going to be shallow frying this fish, and I'm going to be needing a substantial amount of oil to do that. So shallow frying is somewhere between pan frying and deep frying, so somewhere in the middle there. All right, so what I'm doing right now is heating up my oil, and I'm also seasoning the actual fish. You want to season the actual fish just before it goes into your hot oil. If you season it while you're marinating it, it's going to pull out a lot of moisture, which we don't want the fish to lose its moisture. We want it to be juicy when it's done cooking. So just season it before you go in. I'm using just salt and some of my homemade all-purpose seasoning. And I'm going to flip the fish pieces and then season the other side as well. And you want to pat the seasoning in to the flesh of the fish. All right, now it is time to fry. The oil is on medium heat and it's well heated. So there goes the first fish piece. So you see that the fish is not all the way immersed. That's shallow frying. Okay, if it's completely immersed, then we're doing deep frying. You really don't want to do deep frying for this kind of fish because it can dry out the fish. We want it to remain juicy and have moisture, delicious moisture inside the actual flesh of the fish. So at some point you will need to go in and flip the fish and look at that color. And that relish is peeking through slightly there. Oh, that relish in this fish. What a genius idea. This recipe is a must try. You have to try this recipe. Get your favorite fish and throw it down. It's going to be so good. You're going to fall in love. Now, our tomatoes and bell peppers have reduced. It took about 25 minutes to do that. So that's ready to go. I've turned the heat off and it's just going to cool down. My next step is to blend it up. And checking on the fish. Both sides are cooked. We have caramelized it perfectly. So we're just going to remove the fish pieces and cook the next batch. And then we'll be done and move on to the next step. Now this oil here is very well flavored with the fish flavor and the relish as well as all the seasonings on it. So we are going to use the same oil in cooking up our stew, all right, to make the red rice or the actual thieboudienne. So this oil is going to be reserved for that purpose. You don't want to use a different kind of oil. Now to do that, I'm going to strain it because a lot of the relish that fell out of the pockets have kind of burned and we don't need that in here. So just take those out and discard them and then use the oil for the actual cooking. Now we're blending up our red bell pepper and the tomatoes into our tomato sauce. That is the thickness I am going for. It's reduced perfectly. Now the rest of the 3 onions, I just slice them up into very thin slices. And that goes into the oil. And we're going to cook this up. So stir it in to combine it with the oil. We're cooking on medium heat. I have added my curry powder, my black pepper, and the rest of my homemade all-purpose seasoning, which you can substitute with your bouillons. If you absolutely need that umami taste in this dish, all right? You really want those flavors to be in your face. So you need your bouillon or your all-purpose seasoning, okay? So stir that in. You're going to cook this for about 10 minutes until the onions begin to caramelize. And then we're going to introduce our tomato paste. I have 1.5 cups of tomato paste that goes in here. And the tomato paste came out of a can. So we need to cook the can flavor out. I always say that. And not only is the can flavor going to be cooked out, but its sweetness as well as its color is going to be fortified. It's going to become enriched, okay? So you're going to cook that for the next 10 to 15 minutes, stirring periodically until the color goes from dark red to almost like a burgundy color. And then you're going to add the rest of your relish. All of that goes in here. And there is a lot of moisture in the relish because we use fresh produce. So some of that moisture is going to start lifting off all of the caramelized bits of ingredients that are sticking to the bottom of the pot. And that's called deglazing. So now I add the cured fish. And that is really going to bring the fish flavor in this dish to the forefront, like I stated before. Now I also add the tomato sauce. Now this is already cooked, so we don't need to cook it too much. Just stir it up to incorporate it evenly and continue to deglaze as you do that. And then now we're going to also add some water. You cook it for maybe about 5 minutes after you add the tomato sauce, and then add 1.5 liters of water, which will in actuality complete the deglazing, okay, of the pot. All those delicious bits on the bottom will be deglazed with the water as well. It will complete it for us. Now we did use a lot of oil in frying up our ingredients. Why? Because that's going to complete the task a lot sooner than later. We needed to caramelize our ingredients because, as I always say, caramelization of these fresh ingredients is equal to loads and loads and loads of flavor. So we did that, but now we need to just go in and skim the oil. This avocado oil is a healthy oil, so save it, store it on your fridge. You can make some more thieboudienne later, or you can use it to make jollof rice or whatever stew you have in mind. Now we're going to prep the rest of our ingredients. So beginning with the cassava. You want to whack it with your knife, being careful to not cut yourself. That skin comes right off, using your knife to manipulate it off once you've made that incision. Now there is a thin layer of film that covers the actual flesh of the cassava, and for some reason that kind of prevents it from absorbing moisture or flavor. We were taught back in Ghana to prep our cassava this way. Once you've peeled it, you want to use your knife, either the blunt or the sharpened side, to scrape that film off. And there is also a core. It's woody and it's inedible, so that also needs to come out. So you remove that. You scrape it up really good so it's more absorbent when it's put into the stew. I know this is not a very traditional way of cooking rice like this. Back where I'm from in Ghana, we don't put cassava in a rice dish like this. We would call this dish jollof rice. But I tell you what, I was skeptical also, but when I first tried tiabudiem, I fell right knee deep in love. It is amazing what this cassava is going to do. There's going to become an exchange of flavors in the sauce. You'll see. Let me just talking about that for now. So I've prepped my cassava as well as my yam, which is the same as sweet potatoes. My carrots have been peeled and cut up into big chunks. I've just added my okra as well. This is my aubergine as well as my sweet peppers. And I just kind of trim the head off because I don't want to really open it up. It's going to cook too soggy and I don't want that. I want the shape to be retained because it's also perfect for garnishing later on, and you'll see what I mean. So all of our ingredients are now prepped, okay? Squash is cut up into big chunks, and you do not want to cut up your ingredients into small chunks because it'll be harder to retrieve. So the first ingredients that go in are those ones that take longer to cook. So your carrots, your yam, your yuca or cassava, those go in first. We still have our pot on medium heat, and then you add your delicate produce, which will be your peppers and your aubergine or eggplant, as well as your cabbage. Now, you notice that the eggplant I didn't cut up just yet because I don't want it to oxidize, okay? So I cut them up and throw them right away into the pot of stew, okay? And you want them to be immersed. So once you put them in there, get them immersed so they can start absorbing flavor. So here's our okra. And okra is also like one of those ingredients you'll be like, what? Okra in a rice dish like this? Believe me, it absorbs all those flavors and it cooks really crunchy. And when you bite into it, oh, wow. The juices that fill your mouth is to live for, as I stated earlier. It's great. So now I've cut up my aubergine or eggplant, put that in there as well, immerse them, and now the fish goes in there. We are loading all these ingredients into the pot. So now the pot is really full. I cover it up, leave it to cook on medium heat for the next 10 minutes. Then I go back and retrieve the fish. Fish is already cooked. We just wanted that exchange of flavors, okay? So the fish has sort of left its flavor in the pot of stew, and then in exchange take on the flavors of that beautiful sauce, okay? Now we've taken the fish out. And to keep the fish warm while we wait for the finale, you want to cover it up with a lid or foil, and you can set it in your oven to keep it warm, okay? So now after about 15 minutes, you go back and retrieve the most delicate fresh produce that you added to the pot, which would be your peppers, your cabbage. The aubergine or eggplant should have been cooked by now, the okra, and followed by the harder ones, okay, which would be your carrots and your yuca, as well as your yams or sweet potatoes. You want them to be fork tender before you remove them, so that's important. Take a little bit of the stew and just kind of drizzle it onto the fresh produce that's cooked, but still has some texture to it. And cover it up and also set that in your oven. Do not turn your oven on. You just want them to stay warm. Now the rice has been washed, the water turned really nice and clear, and now we're adding it to the pot of stew. Now just take another moment and think about how flavorful the stew has become now. All those big chunks of vegetables we put in there. We all know that vegetables have a lot of flavor. That's how we make broths, right? We have our carrots, our celeries and peppers. Those all have lots of flavor. They are like flavor enhancers. You cannot make broth from a meat without adding fresh produce to it. It's the fresh produce that really makes the flavor of the meat stand out. So just imagine what has just happened. So yeah, you add your rice. I'm just so passionate about this. Stir it in to combine, cover the pot, and let it cook for 20 minutes. And at that time, all the moisture would have been, or most of the moisture would have been evaporated or absorbed into the rice, and then go in and stir. You want to stir because this is a big pot of rice. So stir it to turn the bottom to the top and vice versa. Cover it back up and trap the steam with your foil or parchment paper in the lid. Continue to cook now on lowest setting of heat, okay, for the next 25 to 30 minutes. And when you open it back up, oh my gosh, yes, the rice is fluffy. It is done cooking, and we are ready to serve this masterpiece. So our Picasso is done. We're done painting this beautiful picture, okay? So now let's serve. We're done. We're just putting finishing touches by way of garnishing. So where we've dished most of the rice onto this platter, we're going to now add the fish to it. This is how it's served. And most times, family members, loved ones will join together at the table and eat with your hands, okay? Picking up each deliciousness on this platter. Lay your fish and all your ingredients here as though you were making those final important strokes to finish painting your Picasso. Yes. Wendell B. Smith, who is one of our YouTube family members, stated that he does not need smell-o-vision. All he needs is his imaginal happen. Yes, so please, y'all, do what Fifi or Wendell B. Smith will do. Imagine and it'll happen. Yes, look at that right there. What a masterpiece. Perfection. Hello there, beautiful people. Welcome to Nanabe's Kitchen, friends. I am excited, absolutely thrilled to present my spicy, rich, beautiful beef fried rice. Perfect for your parties. It packs a punch of flavor, a ton of crunch and color. It is also loaded with a variety of nourishing, satisfying ingredients. Let's jump right in, friends. So this is part of our beef series. Today I am using beef brisket, and I have trimmed a lot of that fat off. I'm also cutting them into long strips along the grain, and then turn right around and cut them against the grain into very small bite-sized pieces. We are essentially dicing the meat. Then I transfer the meat into the pot, and then I start layering my flavors, beginning with some onion paste, followed by some chopped Thai chilies. And also I have my garlic paste, my ginger paste, and it is time to season. So here comes some crushed black pepper and some salt. You want to season generously so that this meat's flavor will really stand out. I also added some of my homemade all-purpose seasoning, very, very similar to your chicken bouillon, so you can use that. And I've also added a pinch of curry powder, which is a one-stop shop for all the warm, inviting spices you would want in your savory dishes. Fennel seed, cumin, coriander seed, turmeric, ginger powder, just name it, all in there. So, all right, perfect. So it's on the stove on medium heat, and I've covered it, and I'm going to let it cook for the next 10 minutes. And 10 minutes later, some juices have been released from the meat. It is starting to tenderize. It has absorbed all of those flavors we layered onto it. Now we need to let it tenderize even further. So we're going to need to stir it up and add a splash of water. That will go a long way to help this meat to tenderize. So cover it back up and allow it to cook still on medium heat for the next 20 to 25 minutes. We are cooking beef brisket, so we need to give it time and patience to tenderize, so that when we eat it, we actually enjoy the juiciness of it. Not only would it be tender enough, but it will also have a slight chew to it, which is enjoyable. Now that it's cooked, we're going to separate the meat pieces from that flavorful broth. We're also going to strain that flavorful broth, and not because this is a mandatory step, but just as a matter of preference. I prefer to do this so that my rice, which is going to cook in this broth, can cook without all of that. I would like to call it meat residue. And the meat residue will not be discarded. It will be reintroduced. And I think you'll enjoy the way we reintroduce it. So keep on watching. So in this pan in which I'm going to cook the rice, I have poured in some oil. This is avocado oil. I have added just about a handful of onions, red onions chopped, as well as some Thai chilies. Then I also add my all-purpose seasoning, some curry powder, garlic that has been minced, and also some salt. Stir all of that in and cook for about a minute. And the aroma should be popping right now. Wash your rice, friends. I'm using basmati rice today. Long, slender, elegant grains of rice. I've washed until the water was completely clear. Pour that into your pan and toast it until the rice is dry from the moisture you washed it with. All right. Now that is also going to ensure that it cooks beautifully fluffy. Now you're going to add the beef broth, follow up with some water. We're going to need to cook this rice like it's been fried before we even fry it. And we're going to need the moisture to cook the rice, because the moisture is what's going to help build the steam that will essentially cook this rice fluffy. You're going to stir everything together to combine, and then you're going to cover it with a kitchen towel or a paper towel that's lintless and the lid, and turn the heat down to the lowest setting and cook for the next 15 minutes. Go back and retrieve their chilies because they have released their fragrance. You only need the fragrance, and that's why I left the heads on. We don't really need much of the heat in the rice. So remove those. Stir the rice, and it should be about 50% cooked right now. Cover it back up again with the paper towel as well as the lid, and continue to cook on low heat for the next 20 to 25 minutes undisturbed, and your rice should be fluffily cooked. See how I'm able to move it around with just the fork, and it just moves so easily and elegantly, like it's not being forced to move. It's just moving with a feathery touch. Yes, that's what we want. Now we're going to cook our fried rice, but prior to that, I need to trim off my corn. This is sweet corn from the cob. All right, and the best way to do this is by placing a small bowl in a bigger bowl and putting the cob onto the smaller bowl and trimming it right off into the bigger bowl so you don't make much of a mess with corn kernels running all over the place. Who's gonna clean that mess up? Not I. No. So I have in my wok some oil. I've heated it up, and now I have added my beef pieces. And this time around, we're actually cooking on medium-high heat. So I cook it until the meat starts to brown, and then I'm going to add some Maggi sauce to this. Now this is homemade Maggi sauce with dawa dawa. And you may substitute with store-bought Maggi sauce, even soy sauce, as well as some fish sauce will go a long way to introduce umami here. And I like to add my Maggi sauce later on when I'm actually browning the meat, because it creates this very lovely, enjoyable coating around the meat. It gives it a nice color too. And because I've chosen to cook the beef fried rice this way this time, that's why I added it when it's browning. Now this is the meat debris that has gone into this flavorful oil. I'm going to cook that till it's toasty and dry, and then I'll proceed to add my ginger, my garlic, all finely minced. I've turned the heat down to the medium setting now so I don't burn any of these ingredients, because I do not want to develop a bitter taste. I've also added some all-purpose seasoning, which is very similar to your bouillons. So you can use chicken bouillon or vegetable bouillon here, or even beef bouillon. I've also added my Thai chilies, which I chopped up, because this is essentially a spicy, rich beef fried rice. Follow up with my chopped onions. So I am cooking these ingredients as I add them, about 15 to 30 seconds increments, okay? Now, still on medium heat. We haven't cranked the heat up yet. I add my sweet corn. Now that is raw, so we need to cook it, but we don't want it to release moisture. We want to just cook it through and let it retain its crunch, its sweetness, and its freshness. So at this point, I have kicked my heat back up to the highest setting. We're going to cook on high heat going forward, friends. And when I add the sweet corn, I cook for a minute and add my carrots. I cook for another minute after adding the carrots. So the sweet corn will bring the sweetness clearly, as well as the carrots will bring some more sweetness and some color, as well as carotene, which is great for your eyesight and for that glow on your skin. Now we also added some black beans. It's an optional ingredient, but I really love it in here. I've also just added some red bell peppers for that sweetness and that pop of color and crunch. Now that I only cook an extra 30 seconds after I add it. And then of course I taste, because at this point we've added so many ingredients and we want to make sure that we have not diluted or compromised the amount of seasoning we have in there. And when I tasted it, it was just perfect, because my all-purpose seasoning does have salt in it. All right, now if you taste yours and you need to add more seasoning, please don't hesitate to do it, because the last thing you want to do is eat anything that's bland. No fun. All right, so that's good to go. Now I am adding some of the rice. At first, I actually split the vegetables in two, and I'm doing the same with the browned beef, because we're cooking the fried rice in two batches, as my wok cannot accommodate all of the fried rice I'm cooking today. Now, after adding the rice and the browned beef, since both of those are cooked to perfection, we only cook an extra 2 minutes. Then I follow up with some crunch, some freshness, and also some green with some scallions or green onions, which I have chopped. Now, after I add that, I turn the heat off and I serve, okay? I transfer the first batch into my serving platter and do the same with the second and final batch. Do you love these colors, or what? I love them. The crunch and freshness from these vegetables, the color alone, they're giving me life. Vegetables are good for you, and they are also so kind to you. You just have to treat them well. Give them a good treatment and they'll be even kinder to you, friends. Look at the color, the crunch, Perfect. I did have to add a little more rice because the rice to vegetable and meat ratio was kind of off on the second batch, so just eyeball it. Add your scallions, and voila, it is time to dig in and tear it up. It is chop time, friends and family. Thank Hello there, my beautiful YouTube family and friends. I hope you're all doing well and having a fantastic day. Today, we're making jollof rice, party style. I'm excited. I can even smell the aroma of all the spices and all the other ingredients I have meticulously selected to prepare this special dish. So I can't wait. Let's wash our hands so we can begin. Here are the ingredients needed for the recipe. Half a tablespoon of thyme, 1 tablespoon of dry rosemary, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose seasoning, same as your bouillon, so use 2 chicken bouillons, 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds, 2 star anise. I have a tablespoon and a half of my homemade curry powder. I will link the recipe below. Half a teaspoon of fennel seeds, and you can substitute this with the same amount aniseed. Cardamom pods, which comes about 18 small cardamom pods. And this is going to give us a really special piney flavor. You will love it. Our secret ingredient today. And for the jollof stew preparation, friends, we're going to be needing 3 large onions, and I also have 1 Fresno chili. You can use Scotch bonnet in place of that. I have these Serrano chilies. Now, you can substitute with Papuchita or Petit Bell chilies, and I have 1 tablespoon of garlic paste. Now, for the protein, I'm going to be needing to marinate it with 1 large onion, repeating the Serrano chilies, also 1 tablespoon of garlic paste. I also have some ginger. It's about a thumb size, cut into small pieces. Also repeating the Fresno chili. And then I have 3 bay leaves. And the following fresh 3 herbs in combination work well with poultry. So I have fresh rosemary, sage, and thyme. Preparation will need 1.5 cups of tomato paste. This is my homemade tomato paste with beets. So it will give us a background hints of sweetness, which will be special in this dish. We also need our protein. Today we're using turkey wings, cleaned thoroughly with vinegar and water. We have 1/4 cup of clarified butter, which is ghee. You can substitute with the same amount of just regular butter. We will be needing that for more flavor. And then we have 6 large red bell peppers. We need our salt and crushed black pepper for seasoning as appropriate. We also have 12 cups of jasmine rice, the non-sticky kind. I say the non-sticky kind because I learned the hard way. They have 2 kinds, they look alike, and it doesn't say sticky or non-sticky on the bag. So when you go to buy it, please be sure that you're getting the right kind. Nice brand, and the bags look alike, the sticky and non-sticky. So just be sure you're asking. Now into the blender, I'm pouring in the ingredients to marinate the turkey wings. So I have the onion, the ginger, Fresno chili, Serrano chili, the garlic paste, sage. Now tearing the leaves of the rosemary in, and I will also add now the thyme. What we're going to do is blend everything together to get a smooth marinade. Just adding the star anise, cardamom pods, adding the fennel seeds now, similar to aniseed, so you can use that in place of the fennel seeds. Just added the coriander seeds, followed by 1/5 cup of water to blend these till smooth. Absolutely happy with the fragrance of this marinade because it's loaded with a ton of aromatics. What you're gonna do is just pour it onto your clean turkey wings. Add your all-purpose seasoning similar to your bouillons. I recommend using 1 cube of chicken bouillon. Add your bay leaves and also your salt to taste. And of course, you need your crushed black pepper. You need about 1/4 teaspoon of it. And then also rinse your blender because we're trying to eliminate waste, all right? And we also want broth, a good and tasty broth from cooking this turkey wings. Think of the broth as an important derivative, all right, from cooking the turkey wings, because we will eventually incorporate the broth into the actual preparation of the jollof rice. I massaged the marinade into the turkey wings. It took about 10 minutes. You know, I was just enjoying the textures there. And then that also gives it a chance to marinate nicely, and then set it on the stove. These turkey wings are super tender, so they don't take that long to cook. So you're going to cook on medium heat for 20 minutes. You go back and give it a stir, and it should be ready. Next step is to separate the turkey wings from the broth, because we are going to fry these till golden brown. What is flavor? It is loaded, rich with flavor. We're going to continue the cooking outside because it was a lovely day, so why not? I pour in some vegetable oil. The amount of oil is solely dependent on the pot size, okay? So I poured in enough to fry the turkey wings, okay? This wasn't even deep frying. It was between deep and shallow frying, because I had to go back and flip them. Gorgeous. They are stunning, to say the very least. Crispy skin, juicy inside, perfect. They're done. They're going to be set aside in the oven so they keep warm. Now I'm going to give these bell peppers a char. We are making party jollof rice, so we need that smokiness. So if you have oven flame, you can do this, or you can throw them in your oven and use your broil option. Make sure they're very close to the top of the oven so they can char quickly for you. Done. Now I'm going to prep my onions. I like to give them a thin slice. There are 3 large onions. Onions are everything in your jollof rice. The more onions you have, the more sweetness, the more flavor you get. Now my serrano chilies, I give them the same treatment. Slice them thinly. Done. Now I'm also going to blend these charred red bell peppers. So I'm going to trim the flesh off of the seeds and that white membrane in there. And into the blender they will go, and they will be blended till smooth. Red bell peppers are super sweet, and when they are charred like this, they become even sweeter, and that smokiness is to die for. I've added 1 Fresno chili to it for that flavor and also that spiciness I love. I'm gonna blend till really smooth, and that will also be ready. Everything is now prepped. We are ready to cook our jollof rice. So the oil, I have taken about half the amount off from when I fried the turkey wings, and that's what I'm going to use to cook the jollof stew. The jollof stew requires frying if you want to optimize your flavors, so you need enough oil to do so. So I've poured in the sliced onions and serranos, now adding some salt and crushed black pepper. That's going to help it to caramelize sooner. And oh, the aroma of these onions. I love that aroma. I live for it. All right, so keep on stirring. You want it to caramelize. You want to see some brown actually happening. We're going to now add our curry powder, followed by the dry rosemary and thyme. I find that the dry rosemary and thyme at this stage of cooking your jollof stew really help to develop the flavor sooner. But if you have the fresh, you can absolutely use that. Now we're adding our charred blended red bell peppers and continue to cook an additional 5 minutes so that the bell peppers lose a little bit of its moisture. We're trying to fry that moisture out. That also helps to really elevate the flavors. I have just added the 1 tablespoon of garlic paste. It's good to add it now, not sooner, because then this mixture will be bitter by now if you had added it a lot sooner. Okay, and we really don't want bitterness here. All right, so it is now time to add our homemade tomato paste. What a lifesaver this has been for me. I have the recipe linked below in the description box, so if you want to check it out. Like I said, it does have beets in it, so it's a lot sweeter. And it doesn't have the canned flavor, which I absolutely dislike and have to keep frying to eliminate that flavor. So we add it and we cook an additional 5 minutes. And then we add the broth from cooking the turkey, which is loaded with aroma. Yes, because it has all those aromatics in there, as well as lots of sweetness. It's just absolutely packed and rich with flavor. So we add that, stir that in, cover the pot, and cook for 10 more minutes. Stew is done cooking. Yes, that's what I love about using my homemade tomato paste. It does not require much frying. Now I am skimming off the oil from frying the jollof stew, and I'm passing it through a strainer to catch the rosemary, which was floating on the oil. All right, and then I throw those back into the pot. Now that the stew is done cooking, I reserve about 1/3 of the pot of stew. I will add that as part of my serving. Some people like their jollof rice a lot saucier than others. So I did have a lot of jollof stew and I didn't want to use all that to cook the jollof. I've added the washed rice. You saw that we washed it and the water was clear before we added it. There was a little bit of water in the rice when we added it. So we're not going to add any more water to this at all. You see that there's just a small layer of moisture on the rice. That's exactly what we want. We want to be really careful. Adding too much water to this mixture at this point can possibly make the rice cook rather mushy than fluffy, and we are going for fluffy. Now we're adding the ghee, and the ghee is equal to even more flavor. It gives it a special touch. Butter will do the same thing, and your cold pressed coconut oil will do the same thing as well. So it depends on which flavor you're going for. The ghee does give it a nuttier butter flavor, so it is just special. I love it. So stir that in, cover it, and cook on the lowest heat setting for the next 15 minutes. And there it is. Not cooked at all. It is still moist, and the rice grains are definitely very crunchy, so it's not cooked. But you want to stir it because you saw it was compact. It was really packed together. You want to loosen the grains, all right, so that steam can go through the pot and cook the grains till fluffy. Now you also want to poke some holes in there. That helps the steam to come through and cook the rice evenly. And cover with your parchment paper or foil. Throw the lid on and continue to cook on the lowest heat setting for the next 25 minutes. Now we take the lid off and you notice the rice is still crunchy. Yes, I'm being extra careful. I do not want to overwhelm this pot with too much water. What we want is fluffy and not mushy rice, okay? So we want to play it safe. Now I have some vegetables. I have some onions, red bell peppers, and green bell peppers. I'm going to bury those. I've cut them into really big chunks. I'm going to bury those inside the rice. And what that will do is they will release their moisture. So instead of sprinkling water onto the rice to cook it so that the grains that are crunchy cook through, use vegetables. Because what do you get from vegetables? You get lots of moisture. It's full of water, but then it's also full of flavor. It's a flavor enhancer. Chicken doesn't taste as good unless you add vegetables to it. All meats taste even better when you add vegetables. Same applies to any kind of food, savory foods that you're cooking, or even some sweet foods. So yeah, add that, bury them, and then cover the pot again with the parchment paper and the lid, and cook again for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And you'll be excited as to what you find when you open that lid. Credit for this technique goes to Yemisi of Sissy Yemi TV, a brilliant, hard-working Nigerian YouTuber whom I personally respect highly and admire. She used this technique and I thought I had to try it. She used it in her most recent party jollof rice. I tried it in friends and family. You ought to try it too. Go and watch that video. I have linked it below for your convenience. Thank you so much, Sissy Yemi. So I made some Ghanaian salad. So here is the potato salad part of it. The children really loved this salad. I was surprised. They devoured it. It was unbelievable. I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least. So I made the potato salad and this pasta salad yesterday. They just taste better the next day, and stored it in the fridge. So I have a detailed Ghanaian salad recipe minus the pasta salad linked below if you want to check it out. Now look, just take a good look at this rice. Cooked fluffy, it is moist, and yet it isn't mushy. Everything about this party jollof rice is stunning. Oh, friends, you have to try this recipe. So what I'm doing now is removing the big chunks of vegetables. They have done their job. So we can take them out, but don't discard them. Put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. When you make some soup later on, you can use them to thicken the soup. Look at how fluffy this rice turned out. And it tastes so good, friends. It tastes so good. You have to try this recipe. If you're enjoying yourself, friends, the rice is done. It is almost chop time. You have to give me a thumbs up. Make sure you're sharing this video and telling your friends and family, your loved ones about this channel. Look at that. Flavor galore. Yes. Let's serve, friends and family. I am so happy right now. Just too happy. Yes, it's just beautiful. Look at how fluffy it is. Serve a healthy amount of jollof rice and throw some of that turkey meat on there. Just look at it. Oh my goodness. Just too elegant. And it was tasty too. Add some salads. I have my lettuce, some carrot as well. And the treatment I gave these was I just used a cheese shaver to shave them into the spaghetti form. And it's just pretty. And I added some of the cucumber and cherry tomatoes, some eggs, onion sliced thinly. Yes. Oh, yes, indeed. And this is my homemade baked beans. That recipe is also linked below. And some of that stew for those who love their jollof rice a lot saucier. So I have the high-end salad dressing. This stuff is some good stuff. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Show me that by the thumbs up. Share the video. Greetings, my beautiful YouTube family and friends. I hope you all are well and doing fantastic. Today we are doing a throwback to my very first video, which was a lamb pilau. Rice dish from East Africa, very flavorful. We are today 300,000 plus family members strong. And I would like us to celebrate this moment by going back to our humble beginnings. Sometimes it's good to do that, to remind you of where you started, to keep you in check and grounded. Let's do it together, friends and family. It's going to be amazing. Let's start by washing our hands. First and foremost, we need to prepare our pilau masala, which is a combination of half a teaspoon of cardamom pods, half a teaspoon of cumin, 3 star anise, 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds, half a teaspoon of anise seeds, and there will be 3 whole cinnamon sticks that I will add to this masala pretty soon, but I will leave them in their whole form because my grinder will grind them too coarse. And if you have cinnamon powder, I recommend using half a teaspoon of that. And now we have our pilau masala, which is going to give us that signature welcoming, warm aroma, taste, and character of the pilau. And here are the cinnamon sticks, and the rest of the ingredients are half a cup of pine nuts, and I also have half a cup of homemade raisins, the golden and the brown. I will share that recipe with you pretty soon. We also have some serrano chilies, which is optional, but you know I love the kick it brings. You need your garlic for sure, lots of them. Then we also need 4 large onions. That caramelized sweet flavor of the onions is a necessary flavor profile in your pilau. There are 12 cups of jasmine rice. We're using jasmine rice today, but you can use any long grain rice. I also have a combination of chicken and beef broth, homemade, and I also have my homemade all-purpose seasoning. Of course, we need our salt, crushed black pepper to season with, and we cannot proceed without the lamb. I have lamb chops, just like in the very first video I shared with you on YouTube. And the lamb chops I love because they have less fat on them, more meat, and they are very juicy and flavorful. So I am sprinkling half of my pilau masala onto the lamb because we are going to marinate it and let it sit and soak in all those flavors. I'm also adding half of the homemade all-purpose seasoning. Use 2 bouillon cubes. Chicken will be great, even beef as well, even vegetable bouillon will work as well in place of that. Of course, I'm adding some salt, crushed black pepper, and today we're going to be using 3 different kinds of fat. I'm going to be using olive oil, and that is going on right now as part of my marinade so that the dry rub that I just added onto the meat will cling to the meat and start penetrating the muscle of the meat. All right, we're also going to be introducing some vegetable oil to sear the meat eventually, and then of course we're going to add more flavor by adding ghee, store-bought. I will share with you how I make my homemade ghee pretty soon, so keep on watching. So I begin by prepping the ingredients. The onions I'm going to slice really thinly because I am going to be caramelizing them, and I'll take some and put them aside for the end when we're done cooking the pilau. So I like to slice them thinly, but you can also chop them. I do the same thing with the serrano chilies as well as the garlic, and here we go. It is time to cook. My favorite part. All right, so the pot goes onto the fire. We're cooking outside today. What a beautiful day it was. The weather was so lovely and the birds were chirping and singing, and I just wanted to be out there. So here goes the vegetable oil, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. Let's begin searing. And friends, you know I love to sear my meat, especially when we're cooking a dish like this. Now what you want to do is to place the meat inside the hot oil and leave them alone. Do not flip or turn. Leave them alone for about 3 to 4 minutes, and when you go to flip, what you want to see is that seared color, golden brown. The searing helps to lock in those important juices and flavors. Do the same when you flip them, 3 to 4 minutes on the next side. The cooking must continue, dear beautiful people. So we're going to now add our thinly sliced 1 large onion. I'm using the red one to begin with, as well as the serrano chilies, the garlic, and I'm also going to add the cinnamon right now. So those go in, and then you're going to stir it in. What you want is to have those flavors also become part of the meat, so they will caramelize. So you want to stir them so they also have contact with the oil and the heat in there. And then we're going to cover. All right, the covering will keep and trap those beautiful flavors, fresh aromas that we just added in there and become part of the meat as well. So cover and cook for the next 3 to 4 more minutes. Our fresh aromatics should now be caramelized, sweetened, and there should also now be a complexity in the flavors that are being transformed. The onions have caramelized, and so the sugars in them have become released, also from the garlic as well as the serranos. So there is now the need to go in and deglaze so that we can start forming the sauce that becomes the broth in which the pilau cooks. Now to do that, I have added some of the beef broth just to go in and loosen those caramelized bits on the bottom, and then stir it around, cover it a little bit, and let it cook. Braising is what we're trying to do now to actually tenderize the meat a little more. So we covered it for about 7 minutes, and we went back in and took the lid off, and look at that sauce. The meat is now beautiful, it's tender, and it is juicy. So I take the meat pieces out, as I am doing right now. I can't wait to show you how tender the meat has become. And you saw that sauce now too. That's loads of flavor. Now this sauce here, I'm going to deglaze a little more because again, the sugars are causing the flavors to stick to the pan. So I went in with one of my chicken broth. And you see now we're able to loosen all those caramelized bits. Now let me show you how tender and juicy the lamb pieces are. Ooh, can't wait to cook this. Now, because I have deglazed a little more, I'm going to take a little more of the sauce and add it to the meat to keep it nice and moist. And I'm going to set it in the oven. I'm just going to put a foil over it and continue cooking just to keep it warm in the oven. I'm not going to turn the oven on at all. Now I've added the ghee. More flavor. Yes. Don't skimp. Now I've also added the rest of the onions. So these will be the 3 white onions. I started with the red just because that creates more color, and we need that brown, rich color in our pilau. So stir that in. We're cooking until these onions also become caramelized. Now I'm adding the rest of the all-purpose seasoning, and I'm also now adding the rest of the pilau masala. The cinnamon sticks are still in here because there's still a lot of flavor in here that we want to extract. All right, stir it in to combine, let it continue to cook until caramelized. That should take about 5 to 7 minutes. You want to be stirring constantly. Do not worry about the brown that's going on the base of the pan. That's lots of flavor, and we will be loosening those pretty soon. So I've taken a little bit of the onions that are caramelized and placed them on the meat, and they're going back into the oven to keep warm. You see that we need to deglaze some more, so I've added the rest of my broth. I'm going to stir until all those caramelized bits are released and become part of the sauce that becomes the broth in which the pilau cooks. There is the broth. We will be adding the rice pretty soon. Now, if you know good pilau, you can look at this broth and know this pilau is going to be top notch in its flavors and taste. So here goes the rice, which we have washed thoroughly. So it is devoid of loosened starches. It's going to cook nice and fluffy. That is important. Now, when you add your rice, you want the water to just be enough to cover the rice. We wanted to cook fluffy, so we do not want too much water in there. And that is just enough moisture to cook this rice. So stir it in to combine, and now you want to cover it. Now I'm also going to taste, because we want to make sure that it is well seasoned. Seasoning your food is important, y'all. You want your food to taste like what it is, all right? And seasoning helps for you to achieve that. It's so basic, it's kind of standard, but seasoning is important. So we covered the pot and we cooked it on low heat for 15 minutes. Now it's almost dehydrated but still crunchy, so not cooked through. You want to go in and stir it to loosen it, all right? So it's not compact, it's rather filled in the pot. All right, now we're going to trap the steam with our parchment paper. So throw the lid back on. Still on low heat, you're going to continue to cook for about 25 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to make our kachumbari. Kachumbari is Tanzanian language Swahili for really salsa. A chunky salsa, that's all it is. So you need some tomatoes, some onions. I also added some red bell pepper for sweetness. And you want some acid in there. Why acid? You all know the pilau. If you didn't know, you can even tell that it's going to be rich. So in order for us to cut through all that richness, we need that acid and all this freshness. I added some distilled vinegar to the onions and let it sit for about 10 minutes. That helps keep it crunchy and sweeten it even more, and also kind of pickles it, which gives it a really interesting flavor. Try that, you would love it. Now in the meantime, I'm also going to toast my pine nuts. And when you're toasting your pine nuts, you want to stay with it. Don't walk away. It will quickly burn. So toast it until you have some golden brownness that has formed, and you're done. We go back in and stir the rice after 25 minutes and it's almost cooked. Still has a little moisture in it, which is perfect because I'm going to be adding the raisins pretty soon. The raisins I keep in the freezer after I make them at home, and so they are super dry and needing to be rehydrated, so the moisture in there is going to do a great job of that. So stir that in. The raisins give you a pop of sweetness as you enjoy this rich dish with every bite. It is optional, but if you love the sweetness it'll give you, throw those in there. You will not regret it. I'm also going to throw in the meat pieces. I took them out of the oven and now they're going in, including the caramelized onions we reserved. Those will linger in and among the rice grains. They're quite satisfying to bite into with every single bite. Here goes the last piece of lamb chop. And the pine nuts, which are now roasted to perfection, go in as well. And I'm also going to add the rest of the juices to keep everything nice and moist. Whatever needs to be rehydrated will get the opportunity to do exactly that. Now we're going to stir to combine everything. There are few crunchy bits here and there among the rice, so we're going to cover it, trap the heat again with a parchment paper, and cook for about 10 more minutes. And voila, it will be done. At this moment in time, the air should be blooming with the aromas from the warm spices and the masala we used. You should be having a pleasant experience with the piney, fruity, almost menthol-like flavor you get from the cardamom, warm and earthy aroma of the cumin, the sweet licorice flavor from the star anise and the aniseed, as well as the warmth from that cinnamon, and also that lemony, almost lime flavor you get that's so refreshing from the coriander. They all work together and they are so bold. Perfection. After 15 more minutes of trapping the steam to cook the rice through, it is cooked now to perfection. There should be no crunchy areas except where it should be in the bottom. The kanzo, we call those crunchy cooked rice on the bottom. Kanzo in Ghana. East Africans call it ukoko. In paella, it is called sakarat. It's beautiful. Now we are adding the last few finishing touches to our kachumbari, which is our chunky salsa. So I've added some red wine vinegar, salt, and crushed black pepper, and also to brighten the flavors, I have also now added the juice of half a lime, stirred it in, and we're serving. What an upgrade! even in the recipe as well as my confidence level. Comparing this video with the very first video I ever shared on YouTube. It is linked below if you want to watch it. It is the same recipe as this one with a few upgrades here and there. I couldn't have ever come this far without the support and the love I have received from each and every one of you. I thank God for bringing you all my way. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Share this video. Tell your friends about it, your family. What's up, my beautiful family? Greetings, blessings to you all. Hey, welcome to Nana Best Kitchen. Today we're making fried rice party style with 3 different proteins. It's gonna be so rich. I once made this 2 Thanksgivings ago and it was definitely a hit. Absolutely. In my family, the host of the party said if they were as rich as this fried rice, their world will be made. That's how rich it is. So I have already prepped my chicken thighs. I have 6 of them cut into bite-sized pieces. Just added some salt, crushed black pepper, then chili powder, followed by paprika. This is smoked paprika. And I have just a pinch of cayenne pepper, followed by some onion powder. Then I add my all-purpose seasoning. Now we'll be adding an unusual ingredient, yes, curry powder. Curry powder works here because it's full of aromatic spices and it has a rich color which will add to the rice, the fried rice in the end. It's a win-win situation. I just grated in some ginger paste followed by garlic paste that is also going in right now. So you see this chicken is going to be very well flavored before it is seared. Before we do that, we need to make sure that the ingredients cling to the chicken, so I have drizzled in some oil to make that happen. Make sure you rub it in really well and then set it aside for 10 to 15 minutes. In that time, it will marinate very well. The chicken will become more flavored, penetrated with all of the seasonings and spices we added to it. In the meantime, I have prepped some sausage. This is actually beef sausage. You can use kielbasa or any sausage you like. We want to make this rich, take it up a few notches. So we put a fry on these sausages. Absolutely helps to intensify its flavors. And in the same oil, we're going to now stir fry our chicken. And we are cooking on medium to high heat. And so when you spread the chicken out in the oil, you want it to sit for about 4 minutes before you start stirring. Now, because this is chicken and it is chicken thigh, it takes a lot longer to cook than chicken breast. So we're going to cover the pot and cook an extra 2 minutes because we want to make sure our chicken is cooked through, which is very important, yeah? So now that it's done, we're going to remove it from the oil and then cook our 3rd and final protein, which is some prawns. Yes, shrimp. The tails are on, but they've been deveined. I add a little salt and crushed black pepper. The salt is just a pinch because prawns come from the ocean, and as I always say, they're already briny, so you don't need to add too much salt to it. And it is flavored because the oil is spiced from all the protein we cooked before. Now the prawns only take about 2 minutes to cook. You just want them to get translucent and pink. Now I have some vegetables. And for the vegetables, I have red bell peppers because I just love red bell peppers so much. I also have 1 red onion or purple onion and some green beans, which I've chopped all of these vegetables up, added some salt, crushed black pepper, and my all-purpose seasoning. And now I'm just going to give it a quick stir fry. It is now on high heat to keep the crunchiness and the freshness in. Now I'm also adding some cabbage, which I have chopped up. And cabbage is actually brilliant here because it ups the crunch and fresh factor. I love it. You can use any vegetable you like though, okay? So tweak it to your preference. So I stir fry these vegetables under 2 minutes and they're perfect. I've taken them out of the oil and I have now added some thinly sliced shallots. Now I'm going to add my homemade garlic and ginger paste, followed by my green seasoning blend. Now they go in and I'm going to stir them in. So this is a one pot party style fried rice. So everything is happening in this one pot. Now I'm incorporating 4 of my homemade chicken bouillon or stock cube. This is less in sodium because I use kosher salt, which has less sodium. It has no MSG, but it has that umami you love. And it also is rich in collagen. So, hey, you cannot lose with this, only win. Now, when I made the chicken bouillon, I did also derive extra stock from it. So I just pour that in. And now I'm going to actually fry this until it becomes syrup-like, just like so. Now I'm going to wash my jasmine rice and add that. Now look at the sauce on the bottom. We haven't even added any soy sauce and it already looks like it has that in there. It is so flavorful, so aromatic, just absolutely rich. So I have toasted my rice until all the moisture from washing the rice evaporated. And then I added some more stock, chicken stock, which I derived from making my chicken bouillon cubes. And then I stirred those in, and then I added some water and only a small amount of water, very thin film of water on the rice. Because our goal is to cook this rice fluffy and have that fried rice fluffy feel to it. So the key is to use very little moisture. We're going to rather use steam to cook the rice. And you need a little moisture to generate that steam in order to cook the rice fluffy. So I covered it. After adding the water and the stock to it, I covered it for 10 minutes, cooking on low heat. Then I went back to trap the steam with parchment paper. You can use foil, you can use banana leaves if you have access to that. And then trap the steam, placing the lid on and cook 35 minutes on the very lowest heat setting. And when you go back, there should be no crunchy rice bits. Done. And see how fluffy the rice was too? Now I am adding my protein. 1 pot. So easy, so quick, so flavorful. Will blow your mind. Your family will love you and give you that round of applause. And your guest at your next party will think you're too much. So this is done, y'all. I'm just going to stir everything in. We have our 1 pot party style rich fried rice ready to serve. Look at the fluffiness of the rice. This was good, and it was really, really, really delicious. Very, very, very delicious. You would love this. You must try it. Every ingredient I used that was homemade has been linked below in the description box. It is our favorite moment here in Anaba's kitchen. What time is it, friends and family? You got it. Chop time! Yes, I hope you're inspired to try this recipe pretty soon for your friends, your loved ones, and your guests who will be thrilled. Make it a great day, friends and family, and have fun, especially in that kitchen. Thank you, beautiful person, for watching the video all the way to the end. Kindly leave me a comment and subscribe down below, and don't forget to share the video as well. Also, watch more videos. It is chop time, and here in Anaba's kitchen, chop time is always yes, friends. So pull up a chair. We are all friends and family here.